Soil health is starting to come more to the fore. People are starting to worry about it as we deplete our soils and knock them around. We're losing organic carbons. It is coming to the fore, and I think it's the farmer's biggest asset is his soils. That's something we have to look at and have to look after. A bit over half of the property are heavy clays, very hard to manage. They're the ones that prompt me to change what I was doing more than the good soils are very easy to work. The heavy clays are extremely hard to manage.
Now that we've sort of like shown the area that you can plant legumes on a mound and nearly get 100% normally, it's starting to really take off, and I think people are starting to understand maybe soil health a lot better, and whatever the soil needs to reduce nitrogen and keep your soils healthy and still try to achieve the best possible crop we can.
My next door neighbour said to me, "You're going to try putting some beans in?" I said, "Mate, not interested." This is why not. It's just too much hard work. It's not physically hard work, you're sitting in an air-conditioned tractor. But I'd say if I plant 200 acres a year, I've got to now disc up, I've got to get 600 acres because I've got to go over that country 3 times, maybe have to rotary hoe it. So there's time and time and time and time in the cab that you could be doing other things. So my neighbour said to me, "Why don't you have a crack?" I said, we've stumbled across this machine. We're trying to build one, so I went around to the shed and had a look at what they were doing, and I couldn't believe what I saw. And I just said, "Well, can I borrow it or can you do it on my place?" So we did 10 acres. Then the next year was 50 acres, and then now anywhere up to 200 acres. So it's allowing us to plant 75 acres a day.
I had a lot of growers interested in legumes, but they just weren't sure where to start. And their biggest issue was actually around the bean planters. The first couple of growers, I just said, "Oh, well, I'll get you in contact with Alan." Alan, I believe, was in fabrication and engineering before he retired. So he's always had his cane farm, but he used to build a lot of equipment and machinery for cane farming. So that's his specialty. And he's just fiddled and kept playing, and he's done all the hard work for everyone. And then there's always been a number of growers come to Alan for advice on how to build lots of different types of machinery.
It started off with a machine I used to just bed up, and then we bought an old returning disc, and that wasn't a great success. And then I built a little renovator out of an old set of returning discs, and it worked really well. Then I had to make a roller up to suit, and eventually we got the roller you see now is the one we stuck to. It seems to work really well. And then this was just a larger version of that little renovator disc. Close spacings, the disc spacings are only 150 because closer to the disc, the more fines you produce, the wider the disc, the bigger the lump, especially in the heavy clays. It wasn't until I bought my first GPS in 2009 that was a catalyst for major change. That first change was probably a row spacing change to 1.8. And then from there, mounds, bean planting, multi-species, and then in the last 4 or 5 years of trying to keep my mounds and just renovate the mounds without using the rotary hoe and to be gentler on the soil. 2 to 3 passes is my plant strategy now with little renovator usually into whatever residue is left over from the multi-species.
This particular block has had mud ash at 100 tonne to the hectare under the mound, and then a legume crop on top of that, and then followed up with another soil sample saying it still needed 1 tonne to the acre of lime and magnesium. So we applied that last year. The results are here. You can't control the weather. If we keep going dry into December, well, it hurts. We've seen that off the back of the last 2 years, having a really dry year, and then last year having a very extremely dry year, and then all of a sudden flooding. Soil health, I think, is very crucial. Trash blanketing, stopping our runoffs. We go into a mounding plant, we plant, and it's sprayed and it's kept clean, and that's why I'm where I am. We're always trying to go back to catalysts, see if someone's done something different, if we can adapt that and try to make things better.
I've got a farm that has been my basket case farm, if you want to put it that way. It struggled for years growing anywhere from 25 to maybe a maximum average 29 tonne to the acre, which is not very good. It used to grow 35s and 40s, but because we're planting cane on top of cane and we're never resting the soil properly, we're only doing maybe a 6-month fallow, maybe even less. I bumped into an agronomist at a field day one day. Let me come and give you a hand. I'll do something for you. And that's how it all started, the ball roll. He said, mate, got to look at legumes. I'll show you how to do a soil test, a proper one. Don't use a shovel that you've been mixing concrete in because it's got calcium on it. So just they're the little things that people don't realise they're making the mistake. In 5 years, I've turned that farm around. It's a 100-acre block. It went from the 29s, then it averaged 33 this year. We are looking at a 5-year cycle now. It's averaged 35. The varieties in that time since, say, 2005 hasn't changed. I'm still using those core varieties, and that's what I'm using now on that particular farm. And then I slowly bring in my other newer varieties that I want to trial. And this farm is now producing 35 tonne to the acre.
The great thing about the legumes with the bean planting is you don't need all the big fancy equipment, and you can take the old equipment that you've got and modify it to what you need. So
this seems to be quite a popular option today from what I was, hearing from the growers. Just explain what we're looking at here.
So what we've got here is the yellow part on the top is the air seeder, and then he's got it on the min-till coulters. The air seeders are really popular in the sense that they're not overly expensive to purchase. They're very light, they fit in the back of the ute, and you can put them nearly on any sort of base that you've got.
What other options are there?
There's the Hodge boxes that are on the back of Hayden's planter. There's the little boxes on the SRA min-till planter. But yeah, you've pretty much got a box to put it in. You can stick it on top of something. So.
How important is that cultivation, that preparation, the mounding and all of the things we're seeing demonstrated here by Alan Lynn today?
So it's really going back into your soil health, and with what Mark's idea is also minimising time. So if you don't have to cultivate your paddock 6 or 7 times, you can bring that down to 3, or with Mark's case 1, then you've got a whole hell of a lot more time up your sleeve to get more work done.
The start of everything is your soil agronomy, what your soil is doing. Because we are complaining about, we're not growing cane like we used to. I'm finding that your agronomy, your soil health, knowing what your pH is and what your levels of aluminium and what's in your soil and what's happening with your soil, makes your job easier in what you're planting. If your soil is now healthier, you can grow anything.
Why did you want to be involved with this event today?
Because I think there's easier ways of doing things. I'm probably a bit fortunate. I'm in a little bit easier country to work in. Some people are, like Alan here, has got tougher country to work with. He's got a lot of water logging, whereas my country is light sandy grounds, no flooding. Generally the same what we do to plant cane, but as in getting ground ready, it's a lot easier.
I've got all the weight on the roller, I've got the linkage right down on full float, and as fast as it'll drop, because 11 clicks, and that roller controls your depth. Your linkage cannot, at 11 clicks, can't compensate for you fast enough, because by the time it registers, you've gone 15 metres and you end up. And especially if you're trying to get ground ready for people to plant into, that billet planter driver, he'll want to punch in the head if your drill interspaces aren't level. What are you laughing for, Robert? Shed meetings like this and people being on ground in the paddock and seeing for themselves, neighbours watching over the fence, that type of thing. I do think if you're going to do a major practice change, it is very advantageous to have a buddy, someone you can buddy up with, talk things out, bounce ideas off and share failures.
We went to Alan Lynn's and Alan spoke on how he plants his legumes, how he works his soil. So I take away from Alan, I think Alan and I have the same goals. At the end of the day, we like to grow legumes, we want to get our soil healthy. I do quite a bit of contract work, so I like to get that all mounted up, ready for rain, and then I have my own seed planter that once I have my own moisture in the ground, I then go back and plant mine at a later date, where Alan's working his ground and planting the beans at the same time and hoping he gets the right moisture to get a good crop of bean. So we have the same goal, we just take different roads to get there. So that's one really good thing that I like to take away from Project Catalyst, is going to these projects and seeing other guys what they do, having the same thought, but maybe taking a different road. And we're quite happy to tell our story and help other people maybe turn their direction or whatever it is, but we don't hold back.
Legumes are a really good place to start if you're wanting to improve your soil health. The first thing you'll see is that better soil structure. So once you've had your legumes in and then you've gone through with your renovator, your soil just comes up like cotton candy. Nice and fluffy and soft and breaks down easy. It's not big, hard and lumpy. You're not having to turn it into talcum powder.
We're going to see if we can try grow soybeans for maybe even harvest, take them to seed. We got to suck it and see how we go with that one. But my traditional would have been ebonies and sun hemp, and Lawrence has given me another mixed species to
Add to it.
Start adding to it and see if we can maybe sort some other problems out in the soil. So if we can get 70 to 80 mil of rain and get our mounds nice and moist, and temperature, we're starting to learn temperature in the soil's very crucial to when you plant soybeans. So if we can get that nice and moist, which will lower the temperature of the soil, and go in and plant and get a good strike. Soybeans, as everyone knows, they're quite hard to get up to about 6 inches high. Once they're 6 inches high, they're pretty hardy. The sea is only about 6 kilometres from here, 5 kilometres in a straight line, so I'm not far. You can see there's National Park right there. They just did a number count on mahogany gliders 3 weeks ago in that particular block, and they did trap mahogany gliders. Are they looking at what we do? I think they are. So we have to be on our game.
You learn off everybody. Doesn't matter what practices they got, you implement what you want to do. I had my uncle pass away, so I had to sort of step up and start learning a bit more, because I was sort of learning his way, and then I had to start asking questions. And those questions weren't just based on, oh, you're coming, not only just to coming to these meetings, but talking to your neighbours. And I will generally never talk to anybody, because if some people get an idea in their head and they think, oh, you're a little bit crazy, you know. So I said, well, I'll say nothing for a few years. And then my next door neighbour goes, well, what's going on here? I said, you couldn't grow a cane here. I said, well, it's growing. You need to talk to people and just pick their brains. Ask the stupid questions. I'm good at that. I ask stupid questions all day long. You can ask my wife, holy smokes.
It's important to tell people, don't be afraid to make a mistake. And I think you can only do that on farm. You can't do that, tell someone that sitting in an office. And you've got to demonstrate it. Like I have a partner, we've been in partners probably 15 to 20 years with machinery, a high rise, fertiliser boxes, mounders, different equipment. And we've never had an issue in sharing. And we bounce ideas off each other, and that's been a catalyst for moving forward, I think. I follow him sometimes and he follows me. Just sharing ideas.
Feels like the Keystone Cops.
Yeah.